Wow, what a move by Bitcoin. It popped up above the key resistance area. It's not much of a move, just moved by 2K from 86 to 88K, but everyone is going gaga about this because it is doing this on a day when the Nasdaq and the rest of the stock market, S&P 500, are going down 3%. So Bitcoin up 3% and the rest of the market down 3%. Now, we haven't seen that happen often lately, so a lot of people are interpreting this as some sort of amazing relative strength. So is this, what I said before was that I wouldn't trust any Bitcoin move that goes above this massive resistance line if it's not confirmed by the stocks. Now, right now, the stocks are down, right? So what happens now? So now we're in that situation. Can we still trust this move in Bitcoin? First of all, let's understand why Bitcoin's making this move. This is quite rare and quite extraordinary. We can probably point to this moment as one of, look at this. This is what Bitcoin literally made the bottom on April 7th at 74K. My target was 73K, Bitcoin hit 74K. That's not bad. Now, now the stocks are doing this and Bitcoin's broken through its own line of resistance. Some folks say that Bitcoin has finally come to maturity, has finally matured as digital gold. Is that happening? Should we celebrate this and think that a bull run, a big rally is coming up? Why is Bitcoin doing this? That's the first question to answer. And then we can answer, should we trust this move or not? But before we do, let's first answer the question of which crypto exchange does Pablo use? Well, Pablo uses this exchange that is non-KYC. That means you do not need to show your ID to sign up. That means the exchange can't even see you, don't know who you are. Of course, then Americans can join. That means the IRS can't see you. The tax office can't see you. FBI, CIA, nobody can see you. That's why Pablo loves this exchange. I am now, right, making this link with the exchange. So for up to $8,000 for newbie prices just by joining and trading, right? That's the Pablo link. 1.3 million users, the largest non-KYC exchange in the world right now, fastest growing crypto exchange in the world right now, but only on this Pablo link. So if you're watching on YouTube right now, then the link is in the description below. The link is in the description below. But if you're watching from another platform, such as this one, then basically just click on my profile page and then click on the Stan link, and that's got the link tree to all of my deals. So this is Bitunix, right? It's a big deal. Okay, let's get back to the markets. But remember, folks, it's only on the Pablo link. Okay, so the reason why Bitcoin is making this move is because of this, right? It's because of the collapse in the US dollar. Look at this. To put it into historical perspective, what a collapse we have had recently. Let me put it into regular chart. So this drop means it's the lowest since April 2022. April 2022. And why is that important? Because that was the time, April 2022, when the Federal Reserve first started to hike interest rates. Do you remember? Early 2022 was when the Fed first started to hike interest rates. Now, we have said in the past that this US dollar is heavily related to the stock market and Bitcoin. When US dollar goes down, then it means it's a risk-on environment and it's generally good for Bitcoin. But that's actually not what's happening here. This complicated. US dollar going down right now is not risk-on, it means risk-off, because it means the entire US financial system that they've built over the last 50 years is kind of coming apart at the seams because of what Trump's doing. That's a long conversation. I can cover that in another video. Just remember, what is happening is this, right? US dollar is tanking. US interest rates are spiking up. And all of these things are bad for the economy. So people are going to gold to hide. Look at this move in gold. This is a weekly chart. I mean, the daily chart looks even more parabolic. So look at this. I mean, that looks like one of those crypto charts. Boom. So basically, it's US dollar drops and everyone's running to safety. Safety usually means US Treasury bonds, and US Treasury bonds are tanking right now. That's why yields, 10-year yields, 30-year yields are spiking up. and people are going to gold to hide. Now, what happens to Bitcoin if gold makes a new all-time high? What happens? Bitcoin takes off. I have made a number of videos saying there's this relationship that exists between gold and Bitcoin. So if we look at Bitcoin here, for example, and then I'll put the price of gold on top of that, we can see, folks in my Discord or folks who follow me in my social media, in my videos, should have seen this video a long time ago. So that's the price of Bitcoin and that's the price of gold. Maybe I should just change it to color of gold so then people don't get confused. So I've said often that gold tends to lead the runs, right? Gold makes the lead, Bitcoin follows. Gold makes the move up, Bitcoin follows, right? The only time where Bitcoin made this move first was in March 2024. That was a special occasion. Why? What happened in March 2024? Well, what happened was basically Bitcoin, the ETF for Bitcoin was happening by what are they called? By BlackRock. BlackRock and a bunch of companies launched the Bitcoin ETFs. So basically, that's why we're seeing this move up in Bitcoin first, and then basically gold continued to move up, and that signaled the big move up in Bitcoin as well. And now here we have another massive move up in gold. In fact, gold has hit new all-time high here. This is actually not a good way of comparing the charts because gold is like way above its new all-time high, whilst Bitcoin is down. So Bitcoin calls itself digital gold. That's what a lot of people call it. If it was to move up here, right, and catch up with gold, that would be totally okay or fine or to be expected. So that's the reason why Bitcoin's moving. Just to recap, is because even though stocks are down today, because Bitcoin's finally doing its job that it advertises as the digital gold, that when everything's going to shits, that when one's panicking, US dollar is tanking. Treasury bonds are tanking. Even now, people should be buying treasury bonds, but people are not. So people are buying gold, and people are running to the safety of gold. Gold is making new all-time high, going parabolic, and even stocks are down. In a situation like this, then Bitcoin hasn't moved much. Was stuck at 80K. It was Bitcoin was at 74K like 2 weeks ago. So how is Bitcoin doing its job as the digital gold? Today, I believe, is one of the first days where Bitcoin is finally doing its job as the digital gold. And it's basically trying to catch up to that moving gold, as I told you guys a few weeks ago. But can we trust this move? Can we trust this move in Bitcoin? Okay, let me show you with facts. This is just not just opinion. Let me show you with facts if this move in Bitcoin can be trusted or not. So this orange line is Bitcoin, price of Bitcoin. Over the last 4 months, this is since January 1st this year, this blue line is something they made up by putting 25% gold and 100% NASDAQ 100 index. So they put those two things together. They said, well, that's created an index that copies the move of the NASDAQ, and we're putting extra 25% gold movement, and they got this blue line. If you were to just to quickly and look how similar Bitcoin's move is to that. So what does that tell us? Let me just quickly explain. This chart was done by obviously someone working on Wall Street who's very bad with math. Well, most people don't get it. Well, what do you mean 100% NASDAQ and on top of that another 25% gold? What it actually means is basically in that portfolio, it's 4 parts NASDAQ and 1 part gold. The ratio is 1:4. So rather than say 100%, 25%, why don't you just say 80% NASDAQ, 20% gold? So if you had a portfolio, your investment portfolio is 80% NASDAQ and 20% gold, then you will achieve this blue line. since the opening of this year, since the start of this year. That's what your portfolio would look like. And Bitcoin has followed relatively well. So what does that mean? That's telling us Bitcoin is tracking something that's 80% NASDAQ and 20% gold. When people say Bitcoin, like when I say Bitcoin sometimes behaves like the stock market, follows the standard SP 500 or the NASDAQ, and sometimes it follows gold, then people get confused and people think, well, then that means, so Pablo's saying sometimes gold, sometimes NASDAQ. That's how Bitcoin moves. So it's 50-50 then. So half the time it acts like gold, half the time it acts like NASDAQ. No, we need to be more scientific than that. That chart is showing us that Bitcoin moves like something, a portfolio or an asset that is 80% NASDAQ and 20% gold, right? 80-20. So that's why I've been warning about Bitcoin and how it would probably not protect your assets in a bear market, because it mimics the moves of the NASDAQ by 80%. Gold would have to, if the NASDAQ goes down 50%, then gold as a 20% asset would have to go up something like 200%. In that scenario, gold would have to go up 200%. When NASDAQ goes down 50%, in that kind of a bear market, then maybe Bitcoin would go flat. That's what that portfolio is telling us. So coming back to the Bitcoin situation today, what that's telling us is if Bitcoin if Bitcoin does break through, which it has done right now, and the NASDAQ is down and gold is up, then chances are 80% it's influenced by NASDAQ and 20% influenced by gold. So then NASDAQ better not go down more. If NASDAQ does a double bottom, which I think it could, and then bounce, then I think Bitcoin pulls back and then bounce. So either way, I've been saying in my videos, we have this massive test coming up at 91.7K area. Let's just call it 92K. Bitcoin needs to close a couple of times above 92K in order to confirm its strength, and then above 100K we go. And then obviously 109K. So as I've been saying all this time, my thinking is we get a big bounce in Bitcoin, right? 73K or low 70s would be my target. It hit 74K, so pretty close. And now broke through 86K on correlation to gold. And then next challenge, 92K, and then 100. Once it gets above 92K, I think it'll get above 100K, and then obviously 109K. So overall, my thinking is we will get a big dump likely to get a big dump in the NASDAQ. So I think we're going to see something like a double bottom scenario, something like probably like this, a panic, and then bounce up, and Trump will probably save the market by walking back and caving in on a lot of his tariffs, not because of the stock market, but because of what's happening here. A spike in the, it got up to 4.41% earlier today, a spike in the US 10-year Treasury yield. If we want Trump to cave, then basically then you want to see the US Treasury yield to bounce. That means US Treasury bonds are getting sold. When the NASDAQ goes down for a double bottom, that's what I think would happen, and freaks out the market thinking another leg down is happening. But I think it's going to bounce. Then I would think Bitcoin would, like we said, it's 80% follows NASDAQ and 20% follows Bitcoin, follows gold. So then I'm thinking like maybe a test of 92, and then when the NASDAQ is crashing again, Bitcoin probably does a retest of this 80 to 81K area. It depends on how bad NASDAQ goes, and then bounce up. And then we break 82, 92K, this key 92K area. I do think we will break it sometime in May, and then have another run up. Does it develop into a new blow off top? I think that's possible as well. So I keep both options open, but I'm not saying I'm not saying up or down. I'm saying probably down first due to the NASDAQ, and then a big bounce up, break 92K, and we could have a run at new all-time high. I've stayed bullish all this time. The lowest target I called was 73K, and it hit 74K. So you guys know this. You've been watching all my videos. Okay, thank you, guys. I'll catch you next episode.